Have you ever felt called to something greater? The story of Abraham's call, Genesis 12, is one of faith, obedience, and God's incredible promises. God called Abram, later named Abraham, to leave behind everything familiar and step into the unknown, trusting in him completely. But why did God choose Abraham? What made him stand out? What does this story teach us about faith, obedience, and God's plan for salvation? Join us as we take a deep dive into the call of Abraham, exploring its historical, spiritual, and personal significance and how it still impacts our lives today. Before his call, Abram lived in Ur of the Chaldeans, a major city in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. Ur was one of the most advanced cities of its time, with grand temples, trade routes, and a culture deeply rooted in idol worship. Abram came from a wealthy family and was likely well-educated. His father, Terah, was an idol worshipper, Joshua 24:2, and the people of Ur followed false gods like the moon god Nana. Abram was married to Sarai, later Sarah, but they had no children. In ancient cultures, having no heirs was seen as a curse. Despite their comfortable life in Ur, God had bigger plans for Abram, plans that would change the course of history. One day, God spoke to Abram with a life-changing command. In Genesis 12:1-3, God gave Abram a clear but difficult command. Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. This was no small request. God was asking Abram to 1. Leave his country. Ur was a thriving city filled with trade and security. Leaving meant stepping into the unknown. 2. Leave his people. He had to leave behind his culture, traditions, and community. 3. Leave his family. In ancient times, family was everything. To walk away meant leaving his security behind. But with this command came an extraordinary promise. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Genesis 12:2-3. This was more than just a personal promise to Abram. It was the foundation of God's plan for salvation. Through Abram's descendants, the nation of Israel would be born. Through Israel, Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world, would come. Through Christ, all nations would be blessed. Without questioning, Abram obeyed. At 75 years old, he took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all their possessions and set out for the land God would show him. They traveled towards Canaan, a land inhabited by foreign tribes. Upon arriving, God appeared to him again and said, To your offspring I will give this land. Genesis 12:7. In response, Abram built an altar and worshipped God, marking his deep faith. But the journey would not be easy. Not long after arriving in Canaan, a severe famine struck. With food running out, Abram made a difficult decision. He traveled to Egypt to survive. But instead of trusting God, fear overtook him. Knowing that Sarai was beautiful, Abram feared that the Egyptians might kill him to take her. So he told her, Say you are my sister so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared. Genesis 12:13. This half-truth, since Sarai was his half-sister, led to trouble. Pharaoh took Sarai into his palace, believing she was unmarried. But God sent plagues on Pharaoh's household, revealing the truth. Pharaoh confronted Abram and, though angry, let him go with Sarai and all their possessions. This moment showed that Abram's faith was still growing. He wasn't perfect, but God remained faithful, protecting him even when he made mistakes. Despite Abram's failures, God continued to guide him. As he settled in Canaan, God reaffirmed his promise. Look around from where you are. All the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. Genesis 13, verse 14-15. God also promised that Abram's descendants would be as numerous as the stars. Genesis 15:5. But there was one problem. Abram and Sarai were still childless. Could Abram trust God's promise, even when circumstances seemed impossible? The call of Abraham is one of the most important events in biblical history. It teaches us several powerful lessons. 1. Faith requires action. Abram obeyed God without knowing the full plan. True faith means stepping forward even when the future is uncertain. 2. God's promises are bigger than us. The promise to Abraham wasn't just about him. It was about blessing the whole world through Jesus Christ. 3. Obedience leads to blessing. Abram's willingness to follow God led to immense spiritual and physical blessings. For God uses imperfect people. Despite his fears and mistakes, God remained faithful to Abram, showing that he works through ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary plans. Like Abraham, God calls each of us to a life of faith. He may not ask us to leave our homeland, but he does call us to step out in faith even when we don't see the full picture. Trust in his promises even when life is difficult. Be a blessing to others just as Abraham was called to bless the nations. The ultimate fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham came through Jesus Christ. Through him, all nations are blessed, and we are invited into God's family through faith. The question is, will we answer God's call as Abraham did? If this message inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more biblical stories and teachings. See you in the next video.